debate amongst the philosophers, but we actually believe in this is, a khalq jadid. It's a new creation, which is this body and soul that has become enmeshed. And so this is something really central to the Islamic tradition, is that we believe that the body is, that we're embodied souls, but there's a complete harmonization of these two things. So we don't have a kind of duality in that way, even though there is a separation of the soul, but there's a reunification with what's called al-jasad al-baqi, which is the eternal body that's restored. And it's restored from some kind of, if it's genetic material, we don't know. I mean, cloning, the Quran says, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ. That Allah will show us His signs. And one of the things that the Prophet ﷺ said is there is an indestructible portion of the human body. It's indestructible. And we don't know, is it, what it is. I mean, traditionally they said the coccyx is the traditional view of it. But Allahu Alam, I mean, we know that there is something, there's a seed in us. And from that, there's a recreation. So now we know theoretically that you can take, it's like a hologram, where each cell, in a hologram, if you take a hologram and you take one small portion of the hologram, it's the whole thing. So if you take, a portion of the human being, it's the whole thing, because all the genetic material's there. And this is why Allah says in the Quran that He created us from min nutfatin amshaj, right? There's a nutfa, which is the zygote. So the initial, the coming together of these two things, and then it's amshaj, so it's mixed together. And the ulama, if you read the tafsirs, they don't know why the substantive is in the singular and yet the attribute is in the plural. But we know now, and then also in the Quran when it says that we will, that Allah created us min maniyan, right? Yumna, and then tumna. So there's two qira'ah, right? So there's yumna and tumna, because it's a male and a female many. Because people forget that the woman has many and the man has many. And the Prophet ﷺ said, because they asked what determines the male or the female, and he said, if the male water gets there before the female water gets there, that's X and Y clearly, right? So and he had knowledge of these things, but how do you express it to a 7th century people that would not know any of these things? It's like, when I saw this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ with Aisha radiallahu anhu, she asked him, when he said the ta'n and the ta'un, that fana'u ummati bi-ta'ni wa ta'un, that my ummah will be destroyed by a strike, a martial strike, so an attack, and then ta'un. So he put them together. So is that a biological weapon? Allahu alam. But he put them together. Bi-ta'ni wa ta'un. So she said, "Arafna ta'an." We know what a military strike is. What's a ta'un? Because she didn't know. They didn't have ta'un in Mecca or Medina. So she wouldn't have known what ta'un was. So she said, "What's ta'un?" And he said, "Wakhzun min a'da'ikum al-jinn." It's a penetration from your unseen enemies. Because jinn is anything that la yubsaru in Arabic. Al-jinn is ma la yubsar. It's what you cannot see. So even Lisan al-Arab says the angels are called jinn in that they're min alam al-jinn, they're from the unseen world. So the jinn it's one of these things where it's, itlaq al-ba'd ala al-kull, right? So, or itlaq al-kull ala al-ba'd, synecdoche they call that. So in that hadith, what's amazing to me is that the wakhaza is what a needle does. So you penetrate, and on viruses they call them spikes, viral spikes. So the virus comes in and penetrates the cell wall, and then it releases it. So what protects us from that? Our army, our internal army. So we have an immune system that's got these white blood cells that are reconnoitering throughout to make sure the enemies, right? So if it sees a virus or a bacteria, it identifies it as an enemy. And then it goes and it tries to, and if one overwhelms the other, that's how you get sick or healthy by it. So the fact that the Prophet described it as it's a penetration of your unseen enemy, in other words, they got through your barriers, like they have penetrated your barriers. So I mean, that is a miracle to me of clearly of the ما ينطق عن الهوى. So anyway, the body, like prayer and fasting and Hajj, is also, we forget, it's a physical journey.